This is the Media Police Post, broadcasting from the Fort Hall School of Government. This show, we police the state of truth in the Republic. And because truth is communicated to us by journalists and analysts, we have made it our civic duty to put it to the test. We advance from 2 confirmed truths about the media. 1, and according to Roger Stone, the media is either lazy or evil. And for the most part, it is both evil and lazy. That is why their truth must be put to a test.
And 2, that journalism is verified gossip. In fact, what is presented to us as news analysis is gossip that has been verified by journalists. This gossip has to be ground truthed. We will assess the state of truth in what they submit to the Republic, and we will pass verdict on what is true and what is not. For the record, we are not journalists, we are thinkers. We are not lazy or evil, and we do not verify gossip. What we give you is the truth that sets you free.
On today's show, we will discuss ideas that reflect informed and uninformed opinions and ideas that made you stupid. Narratives that fell into the cognitive trap of we see things as we are, not as they are. Narratives based on conjecture, history, and those that smack of envelope journalism.
Welcome, MC Squared and 2M.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now allow me to begin. Yesterday, in an interview with KTN News, DPP Noordin Haji made some interesting revelations. Speaking in clear and assured tones, Haji defended his record before Sophia Wanuna. This was after he came under fire for seeking to drop charges against politicians like CS Elisha Jumwa, CS Franklin Linturi, and DP Rigathi Gachagua. According to Haji, DCI is responsible for the cases being withdrawn because they submitted forged evidence. In fact, Haji seems to suggest that DCI has a history of forging evidence. And when DPP learned of these forgeries this year, the cases could no longer go forward. That is why they were withdrawn. Not because of the regime change or politics. This sounds like a simple enough explanation, right?
It does.
Except we at the Fort Hall School of Government remained unconvinced by this explanation and his interview as a whole, because it raised more questions than answers, and this is what I want to talk about today. First, we have questions about the DCI's reputation. Haji alleged the DCI has a history of falsifying documents and forging evidence, which leads me to my first set of questions. If DCI is known to allegedly lie about evidence, why would DPP accept any evidence they receive from DCI without question? Isn't DPP's role to check the evidence they receive from DCI, to make sure that it is reliable, verifiable, and credible? Not just in cases involving big politicians, but in every case. So how does forged evidence slip through the cracks? Especially because DPP seems to be aware of DCI's alleged history of forging evidence. And this takes me to my second set of questions. These are about the forged documents themselves. If DCI forged documents, how did Haji verify this? Through an affidavit sworn by DCI officer. What if the affidavit is a forgery itself? Third, Haji did not take his time to explain the timing of this discovery of forgery. And let us use the Gachagua case as an example. In 2021, when Gachagua was charged, the evidence was reliable. And now in 2022, it is not. How is that possible? Did DPP standards for evidence change in 12 months? Or did Haji's boss change in the last 12 months? And this takes me to my final question. If indeed, as Haji suggests, he was manipulated by Uhuru, is he being manipulated now by RUTO? Ultimately, we must ask why Haji did this interview. When he spoke, he raised serious questions about our justice system and exacerbated the lack of trust the public has in our judiciary. And if people don't trust the judiciary, they are less likely to use it to resolve their problems. So we must ask, why would Haji tell country that justice in Kenya is not blind, but can be directed? The answer? Perhaps Haji's message wasn't for country. Perhaps it was meant for State House. Is it possible that Haji interviewed with Sophia Wanuna not to hold himself accountable, but to demonstrate his unique value to President RUTO? And what value is this, you may ask? Not simply the ability to prosecute and withdraw cases at will, but to do so with plausible deniability. If this is the case, then congratulations, DPP Haji. You have a job for the next 4 years.
Whoa. This morning, we all woke up to news that 77-year-old Lula da Silva had won Brazil's presidential election. Now, many of you may ask, so what? Who is Lula da Silva? And why should we care? Well, here is why. The man who lost to Lula da Silva is the incumbent, the first-term president. His name is Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro was elected in 2018. Bolsonaro's rise to power was driven by populism, and his biggest choir masters were evangelicals and the masses, their hustler nation version. At the time he was elected, Brazil's economy was in shambles, and Brazilians demanded for an economic messiah that would turn their fortunes. Bolsonaro was the guy. Bolsonaro is President William Ruto's political twin brother. Bolsonaro's campaign was exactly like William Ruto's. His campaign colors were yellow and green. His supporters would say, oh, for the first time, we'll have a God-fearing president, just like Ruto's supporters would say. Bolsonaro, just like Ruto, was called a thief and corrupt. But the people of Brazil said, that thief, that's the guy we want. And it's not just Ruto. Bolsonaro has uncanny similarities with. Bolsonaro has another political twin brother. His name, President Donald Trump. Like Bolsonaro, Trump served one term in office. Trump's presidency was a product of the right-wing masses and evangelicals. Again, the two, Bolsonaro and Trump, were also very close. They both knew they shared similar traits. In fact, Trump himself once called Bolsonaro the Trump of South America. Long story short, Trump was voted out in 2021. Bolsonaro was voted out in 2022. 1 year apart. Question is, why would two people who are very similar to each other be voted out by their people around the same time? Why would Trump and Bolsonaro, two close friends, serve only one term? It is not because they overpromised but underdelivered. No. It is because Trump and Bolsonaro failed to expand their support base after they won elections. When Trump was elected in 2016, he won 30 states, and throughout his presidency, he governed like he was president of those 30 states. Same thing for Bolsonaro. Both were divisive personalities and never held back in attacking their political adversaries. What's my point here? If Ruto, Bolsonaro, and Trump are political triplets, does it mean Ruto will become a one-term president? Take note, Lula da Silva, the man who's now beaten the incumbent Bolsonaro, is almost 80 years old. He is 20 years older than Bolsonaro. Are you seeing what I'm seeing
there? On that note, I want to talk about President Ruto's tax reform plan. In his plan, Ruto wants every Kenyan above 18 years to be a registered taxpayer. The question on the mind of country, therefore, is this: why does Ruto look like he's trying to tax even students and unemployed people? Instead of pesa mfukoni, is he now trying to take money from hustlers? But my reading today is a little bit different. In our view, we feel that country might have misunderstood Ruto's plan. Allow me to explain. In his last speech, last week, Ruto asked a simple question. How is it possible that M-Pesa has 30 million customers while KRA has only 7 million taxpayers? In President Ruto's mind, that math is not making sense. It is not mathing. He feels there is an untapped group of taxpayers who are not paying their taxes. If there are 30 million M-Pesa users, it means there is economic activity which is not explained that has interested the government. Forget college students and unemployed people. This difference of 23 million non-tax compliant Kenyans is very high. What Ruto is saying, therefore, is this: we must widen the net to bring in more taxpayers. And this could tell us two things. One, there are millions of mobile money users. Two, there are also millions of mobile money users who are not taxed. And many of these are not taxed because they are in the informal sector. Because of this, Ruto is calling on KRA to seal the loopholes that cause Kenyans to evade paying taxes. Let us face it, citizens will not come forward to offer money to the government. It's not in human nature to give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Very true.
So what is President Ruto trying to do? Is asking KRA to shake up their outdated means of collection.
Yes.
It needs to style up and borrow the successful technological model that is M-Pesa. Let us look at what we can borrow from M-Pesa's history. Before M-Pesa was introduced in 2007, the percentage of Kenyans using bank services was only 25%. Simply put, only 25% of the population had bank accounts.
Yes.
What M-Pesa did was tap into a market of people in need of accessible financial services through mobile banking.
Yes.
15 years later, M-Pesa has transacted over 30 trillion shillings,
Yes.
or 10 times Kenya's budget in 2022 alone. Whoa. So what KRA has not done is to modernize the collections to match this shift in the financial sector. Ruto's challenge to KRA, therefore, is that it needs to move with the times. KRA will need to modernize personal data collection, track their transactions, and vigilantly monitor the money. This will also give reassurance to tax-paying Kenyans that the net is being cast wider, to include even that hustler who runs a successful business at the corner shop. When it comes to taxes, there is a famous saying we want to remind all Kenyans: there is nothing certain in this world but death and taxes.
And there you have it. Thank you so much for joining us on Media Police Post. Columns, you've been put on notice. See you next Monday.
God bless.